Hey there, this is Pastor Tabitha Purple. I'm going to talk about something really close to my heart, something I've been doing since I was a little girl. Since I was a little girl, I have been going to church. Church has been a vital part of who I am. It's been a part of my identity. Being a Christian has been everything to me for most of my life. There have been times when I've argued and fought with God and left church and all sorts of things, but I've always come back to a church setting. Now, the current church that I worship with is called a Seventh-day Adventist church, and we worship on a Sabbath, but I haven't always been a Seventh-day Adventist. I have actually been Anglican at a certain point and some other bits and pieces thrown in for good measure. That's a totally different topic for a totally different time. But what I wanted to share with you is the difficulty of not being able to do church in a way that we are used to. Now, I'm a pastor and you'd think, well, of course you're an expert at this. Well, yes, in some ways I am. I've obviously gone to university and had training about this. So, of course we are. But we are in an unusual situation. We're in a world at the moment which has a pandemic. And because of that, most people are restricted in their movements as to where they can go. Now, some people have a little more freedom and are able to go a little further afield. But for a lot of people, they will be under quarantine or they'll be in self-isolation. Just like we are at the moment. We have one family member who's sick, who's isolated from the rest of us, but that meant that we as a family took the decision to be responsible for others and to make other people feel safe by quarantining ourselves and just making people around us feel relaxed, that they don't feel uncomfortable that maybe we have the coronavirus and then, oh my goodness, we're out there spreading it. So what we decided to do was to be responsible and set a good example for our, loving our neighbours and actually doing the right thing. And especially because the work that I do puts me into contact with a lot of sick, vulnerable, older people, of course. I did not want to bring any kind of illness towards them. Flu kills so many thousands of people every year. So even if it's flu, I don't want to spread that. And I've learnt that through this pandemic, which has been very helpful for me in my ministry, I think. So that's what we're doing. But what does that mean for a day when you are resting that is called a church day? So for us, we worship on a Sabbath, so we go to church on a Sabbath, but there's people that obviously go to church on a Sunday, and the same would apply for them. How do you have a day which you are thinking about God, you're trying to be closer as a family, when actually what's really difficult is you cannot do the things you're used to? So normally we would go to church and we would worship God together in a community. There's normally always a Sunday school or a Sabbath school that you can go to with lovely, wonderful activities, and that breaks up a lot of your day because you'll spend a few hours there, then you'll have lunchtime, and by the time you turn around, it's like halfway to dinner. And, you don't have that much more time to fill with children before they go to bed. And I say this specifically as a parent. As an adult, this is a slightly different challenge. And we can talk about that in a different way. But for children, this is particularly challenging. Children have a lot of energy. They need a lot of input. They need a lot of activities. And so this can be really challenging to keep our children engaged when we can't do the things that they would be used to doing on a Sabbath. And this is a very different challenge than, say, for school. Because you don't want your Sabbath or your Sunday to reflect the same way that your school day reflects. Because, of course, that's school. You want to have the freedom, you want to have the relaxation, you want to have the sense of rest, but you do not want them to end up fighting because they're bored, or coming to you every 5 minutes because they're bored, or, children and the word bored can drive you insane. So, quite a few years ago, when I first started out in ministry, I started to produce ideas for parents, what you can do with a variety of children, or, for people on a Sabbath if you weren't at church. Those ideas still apply, and I will put a link to the website when it's up and running so that people can really draw back on those ideas. And lots of them, we got lots of feedback at the time telling us how valuable they were, how much people really valued having an idea of something that you can do that is kind of out of the box. And one idea that I remember really struck a chord with people was baking. And they've now subsequently, there are lots of books since that time over baking through the Bible or baking by biblical stories, really interesting things like that. So you can teach your children how to bake as part of your worship activities. You know, they can learn how to make communion bread. They can learn how to bake a Jericho cake. There are all sorts of things, but they can also do things, of course, like baking cupcakes for others and things like that. At this time, that's not going to be appropriate, but normally we have contacts, so you can bake cupcakes for the elderly and then deliver those cupcakes, and that's a wonderful activity. But at this moment, we can't do that, obviously. So what then am I going to do? What I am suggesting to everyone is to find a service, a church service that's being offered. Most are less than an hour for children, so that you have something solid to work towards and break up the day. What you're looking for is things to break the day up with. So you've got breakfast, you've got lunch, you've got dinner, which are natural punctuation marks in a day. Keep those quite similar times to what you're used to. I would then say that you need a service time. So if you don't know a service that you can follow, in the Netherlands, we will have a children's service. I'm very excited. The team have put together something for the national, so the children can all watch the same things, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think, and I'm very excited about what they're working on. So that will launch tomorrow morning, and that will be live at 10 o'clock, and it's a YouTube channel, so you can log in and have a look. So that's very exciting. But if you don't know what your local or national church organization is offering, there are other things you can do, like gear up to watch a Superbook together, or gear up to watch VeggieTales together, or gear up to watch, you know, something that has, it's fun, it's Christian, has a good message, something that you can talk about. So have a moment where you're definitely going to do a worship activity where you watch something that gives a story, some input into some sort of theology, and drives the day. And from there, I would say, flexibility is really going to be key. I have a real challenge tomorrow because it's just me, one, and we have 3 children with 3 different theological needs and 3 different theological inputs. And so 2, 8 and 10. One of ours is already baptized and is very much committed and has made their decision for Jesus and really is into Bible journaling and loves all the Bible stories and wants to read every story and understand it and has a million questions and is really loving that side of it. However, I have another child who is on his journey and loves science and math, and of course then Sabbath, when it's all stories, can be really challenged. So what we have for him tomorrow, we're going to test out, is the Bible infographics. I also have an adult version. This is the Dutch version. I believe they do it in quite a few languages. So Bible infographics. And this has lots of iconic pictures and numbers. It has stories, but maybe presented in a slightly different way to highlight the science, the science math aspect. Like, I've opened 3 pages and already they've got like fire on the page and lots of numbers have flooded the page, and I can already see how this is going to work for him. But it's lots for him to learn, lots for him to associate, lots of interesting did you know this point. And we also have a science devotional that he follows. And those are things that he can do independently, which is really important for him, and really important for me, because I have another one. We have a 2-year-old, and 2-year-olds need to run around and they need to go outside and they need to get their energy out, and listening to stories. You know, if it's Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, she's there. She'll sit there for 20 minutes. But any other show that isn't Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is not getting watched for 20 minutes. So that presents us a really big challenge, because it's not only about Christianity, it's about anything outside of her favourite topic, because she is 2. And that is the nature of 2-year-olds. They can be very fickle with their attention span. And so there will be a lot of time where I need to be spending on the floor, playing with the Noah's Ark, playing with the toys. We have special toys that we set aside for weekends that we call Sabbath toys. So we'll have those out. They're not their normal toys. They aren't allowed to play with them during the week. And it's just to give them the sense that, this is special time and we still want you to play. We still want you to have fun. We still believe that there is a time and a place for all of that. But we put stuff aside that's going to be much more according to our belief system, according to they never have any fighting in the games. There's never a sword. Contrary to the biblical narrative, of course, where everyone fights, as my son will tell me, and everybody's having a sword out. Why can't I kill people on Sabbath? Because mummy needs a rest from that kind of behavior, thank you. And although we talk about it in the Bible, I don't need to have it in my house. That is what Sabbath rest means to us. So that's really how we're planning to get through the day. I know that sounds really fluid, but books for one, art for another, and playtime for the third. Some, of course, Bible activities built in there, Bible toys, and we're going to gear up to watch a service, and we can watch in our pajamas, which is great because it means I don't have to wrangle the children to get them ready for church in the morning. They can just go to the screen and we can just watch it. And that's going to be, I think, a big difference to my family. Normally we're wrangling the children to get out on time to get to church. So that's the particular challenge of Sabbath with a family that cannot leave the premises because, of course, under normal circumstances, we can go and find butterflies, we can paint flowers, we can run around in God's nature and look at God's green earth and be very happy together outside. But because we're in quarantine, we have to stay inside. And that means looking for God's green earth through the window, out the door. We don't have a very green garden, so we won't be doing that so much. But looking in books, it means trying to think of creative ways of spending quality time together, enjoying one another's company, learning something about God without going insane. So this is going to be a real challenge. I'm being honest as a pastor right now. This is not easy for us as a family either. And because we're one person short, my husband is upstairs, what I would normally do in terms of Bible journaling and getting all of the stuff out and having fun will be made much more difficult with a 2-year-old who likes to destroy and eat everything. So that's really going to be a challenge for us as a family. And I'm hoping that we survive in some grace and that we come back to you next week, tell you what worked and give you some ideas. But what I will be hoping to do is really to get the website up and running. I've been talking about it for like 1.5 years now, so this is nothing new to you. If you have been following me, I've been trying to get this done. I just happen to have the time now because we're in quarantine, although I'm tired because there are 12 hours from 7 till 7 when children are awake and requiring parents' attention. So it's a real challenge to do all of these things, but we're trying. So hopefully the website will be up and running, and it will be able to give you some clear information with some book reviews to help you to pick out some good materials for yourself, some good places you can go online. But if you have a neighbour who has the infographics Bible, I'm highly recommending this for children who need facts, figures, numbers, sciencey bits, who are used to looking at things on YouTube and places like that. So they have the iconic, kind of pictures in similar styles that makes it easy to do. If you have older children, so now I'm going to just do a bit, if you don't have younger children like me, if you have older children as well, if you have teenagers, may I implore you to use the Bible Project. That is really wonderful for beginning conversations, really deep parts of theology, really deep parts of the Bible, looking in depth. And they have lots of resources alongside it. They have a podcast, so then children can actually just spend time listening to the podcast. Your teenager can listen and then write all their questions down and come back to you, and you can talk about it. You can disagree with it. It's wonderful a jumping off spot for conversation. So while I am the parent of much younger children, I taught and am a youth leader at heart. So of course, my heart goes out to all of the parents of teenagers and of young people. And I would say that that's a really good project. You know, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, shape or form. It's just that it's a really good project, and I can really say that it's helped me with conversations with young people. It's brilliant for doing that. So that's just a note about teenagers and older people, older young people, older kids, that maybe if you have just older children, just teenagers, then you can go down that route. And look at, say, something that's more structured towards theology, that's more structured towards gaining understanding about the biblical narrative. They believe in the holistic teaching of the Bible, which is wonderful and really gives you this sense of peace when you think about it in a whole holistic sense, because there are some real parts of the Bible that are very conflict filled. So enjoy. I really do hope that this weekend of Sabbaths, of rest, of church days is filled with rest for you, that you do find hope, that you find comfort, that it isn't too stressful. Having children at home particularly can make it very stressful. So I hope that this works, and God bless you. Bye-bye.